Coming up in this episode.
Nature never lies. Most of the things that we're being taught in modern day doesn't fit into our true design, and we belong in nature. We continue to try to dominate and separate rather than integrate. And I think that when we're seeking the truth, we can always ask, does this occur in nature? And we can find out pretty quickly if it's something that we should be doing.
You are now listening to the Here for the Truth podcast, hosted by Joel Rafidi and Yerasimos.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Here for the Truth. I'm Joel Rafidi. Got my co-host Yerasimos with me. Thank you so much for being here, whether, you're a long-time listener or if this is your first time listening. Yep, we're a truth-oriented, truth-seeking podcast, yet a big premise of what we do is kind of keeping you grounded in reality, wanting you to remain connected to your mission, to your gifts, to your unique reason for being, and not getting lost in the noise and the distraction out there. Like, that's what we're about. That's what you're into too. I think you're going to find yourself a home here, and you're really going to enjoy this conversation that's about to follow with Mollie Engelhart for her second time joining us. And she just embodies the healthiest dose possible of what so many of us need, which is just this tenacity, this resilience, this deep love and reverence of life and the sacredness of humanity, and the willingness to be forged by the fire of her journey. Because that's where so much of the beauty is, man.
Yeah, I love Mollie. I love what she's done. It's been amazing to see her create the events, to go through the fire, to face challenges, to rise up like the phoenix, stronger and wiser than before. And I really love the conversations. I think she embodies a lot of the values that we talk about on the podcast and the things that we share in Rise Above the Herd. She even during the show was talking so much about like not going along to get along and separating from the herd, and how important that is, if you're going to do something truly meaningful, and really looking at the ways that, we are kind of conditioned to conform in life, and how, certain foundational things in what it means to be a human being get co-opted, our need for community, our need to kind of stay together and survive, that gets hooked into us, and that natural element gets co-opted by the social engineers to kind of push us in certain directions and kind of pull us off our center. And so, like you said to start, like discernment is such a big thing about what we do. We have all different types of conversations on this podcast. We have all different types of guests, and it doesn't mean that we agree with every single thing that our guests say. But what happens in real life when you're faced with someone that challenges you with your beliefs? Do you stay open to it? Do you grapple with these ideas? Do you completely shut off and go, F that person, they're crazy? Or do you go, hey, being a human being is complex. There are many different elements to become aware of. Are you attached to your belief systems? Are your belief systems literally your identity? So if they're challenged, then it feels like someone is coming after you and trying to take your life. Because that's what it feels like. You hear stories all the time. You observe behavior out in the world. You say something simple that goes against the belief of someone, and they lose their minds. And so, having the ability to take in information that challenges your views and your beliefs, and to sit with the discomfort, and something that we go into with Mollie in the podcast, and something that she is just it's become her superpower, is how do you dance with uncertainty? How do you dance with not knowing? And I think for the sincere seeker, sure, you can have your convictions and the things that you're really into, but there is that space where you're willing to be in this place, being in the mystery, being in this place of not knowing, that then drives you. So I love the conversation. I love this podcast.
Yeah, me too, bro.
I love this podcast.
I
love what we've built. I love what we've created. I love the impact that it's having on people, And so if you're listening to this and you've been listening to the podcast for years, send us a message. Let us know. Let us know what episodes you love. Let us know how these episodes have impacted your life. We do this because we love it, and we do it because We want this information. We want these conversations going out into the world because we want people grappling with ideas.
Yep. You mentioned briefly before Rise Above the Herd. For those that don't know, that's our kind of flagship course program that basically helps people to live with far more authenticity and really enhance every single arena of their life. And it's like the name Rise Above the Herd in itself, depending on the person's consciousness, but when you hear it, people might think like there's some elitism kind of sewn in there or whatever it might be. But on a deeper level, to kind of do what someone like Mollie does, as you're going to listen to, etc., to genuinely become who you were born to be, to walk the path less traveled, to walk through the biblical narrow gates, to forge the unique inner genius that you have. It requires you to go against the grain. It requires you to go against the crowd and quote unquote rise above the herd. And that's really what we mean by that. And that's our deeper message, is that you need to become who you were born to be and embody and enlarge the gift that God has only given you. You need to value that more than anything else. And on that journey and on that path, it's going to come with costs. It's going to come with consequences. But they're our people, and they're the people that we're calling in here at Here for the Truth. And if you are looking for a community of people that really do embody that, honestly, the $17 that we're asking for per month inside Friends of the Truth is the highest ROI value, well, one of the highest that you could possibly spend. Like, just to be surrounded and be impacted, as has been mentioned by some of our community members, by osmosis, just through the conversations that are happening, just through the spirit of the culture that the people in that community embody, is genuinely priceless if you're on this path of individuation and of coming to wholeness and coming to health on all levels, physiologically, psychologically, spiritually, whatever it might be. So you can learn more about our community at hereforthetruth.com/FOTT. And if you come in intentionally, like, you will be welcomed and embraced with open arms, and you will find deep connections, deep connections. So thank you so much to all of you. Wherever you're listening, if you can take 10 seconds before you listen to this podcast and rate us on Spotify or Apple or wherever it might be, that would mean the absolute world to us. Here is Mollie Engelhart. Today, Mollie Engelhart returns. Chef, regenerative farmer, and author of her brand new book, Debunked by Nature. Raised on her family's organic farm in upstate New York, Mollie went on to own a Sage vegan bistro in Los Angeles before a profound reckoning with the realities of soil, life, and death drew her back to the land. She is the founder of Sovereignty Ranch in Texas, where she and her family steward a regenerative farm and food forest, and she's the co-creator of Confluence, the truth and freedom gathering that brings together seekers committed to sovereignty, health, and authentic connection. So Mollie, welcome back to Here for the Truth.
Thank you guys for having me back. And thank you for always being here for the truth and having these conversations be alive in the world.
Absolutely. I'd love to start right there. What does being here for the truth mean to you?
So it's interesting, since I wrote this book and these realizations, that is something different. But what I got as I was writing this book is that nature never lies. Actually, that was the original name of the book, Nature Never Lies. And so as we're out there trying to distinguish what's true and what's not, and we're always getting new information and we're always trying to do that, often we can take the concept and put it in nature and ask, does this exist in God's design without being distorted? And ultimately, most of the things that we're being taught in modern day doesn't fit into the nature and God's design and what is our true design. And, we belong in nature, not separated from it, not, we continue to try to dominate and separate rather than integrate when it comes to nature. And I think that that is our truth. And I think that when we're seeking the truth, we can always ask, does this occur in nature? And we can find out pretty quickly if it's something that we should be doing.
Yeah, I like that answer. So what have you been up to since the last time we talked last year? I think it was around this time, maybe.
It was August.
Summertime.
It was August last year.
Yeah, it was August. Wow.
Yeah, last year I desperately trying to keep my restaurants alive in LA, and
Yeah.
that changing them to regenerative was going to outpace the totalitarian bureaucracy construct of doing business in Los Angeles. And I was unable to outpace that. I was unable to navigate all of that. And then we closed our last 2 restaurants during the fires in January of this last year. And it's interesting, I was able to navigate and be very financially successful in LA, in California, with all of that, the hardships that come with that. And COVID just really ratcheted up that hardship in such a way that, the way I see it is that the bureaucracy stole the 15 years of my life it took to build those restaurants, the $25 to $31 million deal that was mine and we were working on when COVID hit, and then stole the income, that my future income, because I also couldn't sell them, and then they couldn't survive the pandemic. And people could say like, oh, you're a bad business person. You didn't know how to navigate it. You didn't pivot enough. Sure, they could say that, but I'm someone who grew and financially was successful in a very hard place to be successful for more than 10 years with year-over-year growth and quarter-over-quarter growth. So I suspect it's actually not how I ran the business, and that it was by design to get rid of the independent wealth maker and the independent thinker, the entrepreneur, and they want us all consolidated into either government or big corporations that are in bed with government. And so that oligarchy can control everything moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so,
definitely
go ahead.
rings true. Definitely rings true for sure. I want to ask you, like, looking back now, how do you kind of reckon with or frame, I guess, the bitter ending, so to speak, of your entrepreneurship journey with Sage, etc., in terms of like God's design and the life that you're experiencing now and the redirection?
I think that I don't know if we talked about this last time, but I don't know that, I think I did tell you this. I don't know that if I had sold the restaurants for 25 to $31 million, I'm not sure that me and my husband's marriage would have been as strong as it is now. I don't know that we would have survived, getting this windfall of money that came from a business that I started. And there would have always been a little bit of that inequity or in our marriage. And I think in order for my feminist like dogma to fully die, I have to build something with him together and not be the dominant one. And so I would say that for our marriage and for our family, it was of a benefit, even though financially it feels hard right now. And I would also say that I think that all of it, the journey, the switching to regenerative, positioned me as a thought leader in the space that will have a ripple effect that I can't necessarily measure. I can't necessarily quantify financially and say like, oh, this is the balance of my Bitcoin or whatever. Yeah, that balance is way smaller for sure. But like, is that the quantification of like, is my life purpose being fulfilled? No. And so I don't know the ripple effect of me being willing to say like, I believed this crazy dogma my whole life. I'm about to blow it all up and tell you guys I was wrong. That willingness to tell the truth, that willingness to change our minds, I think has power that I can't measure based on my bank account balance or my Bitcoin balance.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say that. And then I would say, last week, me and Rylan were at the Heritage Foundation talking to like the most influential people in the Conservative Party about soil health and human health. And ultimately, I don't believe in giving my authority to anybody. I don't believe in government if we wanted to tear it all back down to the Constitution, I'd be super down. But I'm not like big on, giving my power away. But I'm also understand that 90% of people are still in this like left, right, red, blue paradigm. And so if I can get the largest think tank in the conservative paradigm to say soil health and human health are deeply integrated, and my brother's foundation can do an all-day talk that's live streamed on C-SPAN and CNN and everybody's covering it,
Yeah.
I feel like there's some ripple effect of that. Whether it's government actually does something to help it, I don't know. That's not really relevant. The conversation being in the world so that more people that were totally asleep to this idea of human health and soil health and how closely we are connected to that, that's powerful. And so I'm all about getting the conversation into the world. Just because I go to the Heritage Foundation and meet with special advisors to Trump, does that mean that I'm giving my authority to that person? No. But if that person is saying we are in an existential crisis and we do need to shift and we do need to have a soil health, a human health, a farming health conversation, or we're in real trouble, I'm all for having that conversation. And I don't know that the trajectory of both my brother and myself in California, deeply connected to the vegan community, would have given us the freedom to go to the Heritage Foundation and say, okay, I'm totally willing to sit on a stage or sit in a round table with the most conservative think tank in the world, arguably. Oh, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say, you can't underestimate the power of a seed being planted, pun intended, and so it's like there's so many people who are dogmatic and like, I'm going to give my finger to the government. It's all BS. It's all fake. It's all theater. And yet the opportunity to collaborate, to share your voice with people that are impacting the 90%, let's say, where information can get out there, where people can hear something and go, interesting. Maybe I could apply this to my life, or maybe think about things in a new way. And so I just think, we can't get stuck in this like all or nothing, like, oh, I'm anti-government, it's all BS, because there's value there.
I mean, I haven't said this anywhere else, but I'm saying it here. I'm actually feeling that I'm possibly called to run for office, and I'm resisting it. And usually when I'm feeling like I'm called to do something and I don't want to do it, I know that like that's actually what I'm supposed to do. Like that's and that's like crazy, because of how I feel about government is, but it's like you said, it's like planting the seeds for the masses. It's important. And so, and I don't know that I'll end up doing that, but I'm just saying I am in that inquiry right now because I have a powerful way to communicate that breaks through certain ideas and constructs. So we'll see what happens with that. But I definitely do think we can't be in an all or nothing. I'm literally doing the Heritage Foundation's podcast right after this podcast today. And will I talk about the same things? Probably not. Like I can talk to you guys about, chemtrails and whatever, like the craziness that's going on. And I'm going to keep it more rounded in faith and soil and farming and all of that. Yep. And when I say, I don't mean rounded, I mean contained into the mainstream narrative, but I can still crack. I mean, the cracks that came in my narrative around veganism came in little ways. It wasn't like everything just got crashed with a hammer one time. Like the construct started to crack, but when my ideas of veganism cracked, everything else tumbled down like dominoes. And so how can we make those cracks in the armor of the world? And largely the Conservative Party has been in an extractive conversation. And if we could shift the Conservative Party from an extractive conversation to a holistic in communion with the soil conversation, that's extraordinary. And the fact that the Heritage Foundation has created a whole section called Rejuvenating American Wellness that is all focused on human health and soil health, I'm like ecstatic about that, because there's no way that doesn't have a positive impact. Like I'm just
100%.
No matter if you think they're Nazis and they 2025 and everything else, like 50% of people, I don't know, but a lot of people identify as conservative or liberal. Yeah. And I always say I'm a radical centrist, non-binary when it comes to my politics.
The vessel by which the message is proliferated out into the world matters far less than the fact that the message is getting out there. And I think it's quite naive for, I guess, I think it's niche factions of truth and freedom communities to believe that humanity is at a spiritually evolved state enough to live without governments in, the way they kind of think that it should be. And it's like, what's here is what's here. And how do we work with and utilize it to continue to get the message out? And like you mentioned, without giving our power away, because we never need to do that, but to be invited into a conversation that can reach more people, and to be as dynamic as you are, to realize you can come to this podcast and have a certain kind of conversation, then go to that podcast and present in a different way that's going to hit that audience right in the guts where it needs to, then like, that's a beautiful fucking thing.
And go ahead. Sorry.
Well, and the other thing too is for you to then go on, let's say the Heritage podcast, but then people that are in the audience that maybe are more aligned with some of the other more esoteric stuff that we get into, they'd be like, well, Mollie, you should have talked about this, that, the other, and it's like, you have to know your audience. You have to have discernment on what you share and where. And again, I think people get so caught up in, if you're not telling 100% the truth at all times, no matter who you're talking to, you're somehow like betraying yourself. But that's not the dance of life. And that's not how you communicate.
And it's the same everywhere. So like in my community, I live in community, living in community is hard. And we could look and I could be like, this person's not carrying their weight, or this person is this, or this morning I just got triggered. Like somebody was saying the dogs didn't have water, and then they let the dogs out and created this whole bigger situation instead of just, like staying in their lane and being like, hey, whoever's in recharge, those dogs over there, they are out of water or whatever. So I got like, and I made, and really that person is trying to help. That person saw dogs without water, was trying to help. And yes, it created this whole other situation. That's life, right? It's kind of messy and you want everybody to do exactly what you want them to do. Government is the same way. And so I'm highly disappointed with Trump, highly disappointed with RFK and all these things. And we're in a time in life where soil health, vaccines are being questioned at the mainstream level. Soil health is being talked about at the mainstream level. Getting food dyes. Yes. Do I think food dyes are the most important thing? No. But talking about fluoride out of our water, talking about food dyes out of our water, talking about less processed food, going to grinding school. There's grants for schools grinding their own flour we have never been at a time where at the mainstream government level, at the federal government level, these things are being talked about. So I do think we need to celebrate the truth and freedom community, the Maha community, the radical outside of everything community. We all contributed to this mainstream conversation that's happening. And I think that we need to take the wins where they are. And like, what are you talking about? RFK with the wearables? What are you talking about? The general mRNA vaccine? Like, yes, hold him accountable 100%. But
yeah,
I want to say that I think that I sat down with the USDA, with the FDA, with all these people in a closed, actually, I'm not supposed to say who everybody was in there, but 40 people in that room. How do we make soil health at the forefront of what is happening and how the money is being funneled? I'm not into government subsidies, but if there's going to be government subsidies, please let it be for organic local food. Please let it be for regenerative farming. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So I feel like we do have to live in that dichotomy and not be all or nothing, or we won't make the progress that needs to be made. And I also think we need to come together more. For example, the left and right conversation. I made a post yesterday about everybody's talking about Cracker Barrel and how they went super woke and now they're losing their market cap. And it's like a lot of conversation about it. And there's this guy, Robbie Starbucks, and he always calls out corporations for going woke. And he has a lot of power and what he's doing is awesome. But what I also want to say is, but what Cracker Barrel is serving is causing human dysfunction. Our health, our mental well-being, our physical well-being is being our fertility, our literal fertility, all of it is being robbed by that kind of food. And so I actually think there's an opportunity for both sides to say to all of these big corporations, and arguably is more important than whether you fund a pride parade or not, is if you are serving food that is literally poisoning humanity and making us metabolically unable to reproduce, which is arguably our purpose here, that should be, both sides should be able to come together on that, so easy, and use our power. And so I think if we can use our power to be outraged about rocking chairs at a pride parade and make them change their ways, or make Target be outraged about a bathing suit at Target, let's be outraged about what Target's serving the public, the chemicals, the endocrine interrupters. Like, I actually think that if we can make those kind of shifts to make corporations do what we want over that stuff, there's a far greater coalition who can demand that health and wellness of humanity is the foundation of their values.
Mic drop already.
Mic drop already. So yeah, I think that we want to come together on the wellness of humanity. And we talk a lot. I talk about this in the book, Debunked by Nature, that I just wrote, but we talk a lot about reproductive rights. We talk about reproductive health. And if you were an alien and you came here and you heard the sentence reproductive rights, you would think it would be the right to reproduce, the right to have babies. And if you heard the saying reproductive health, you would think it means, are you healthy enough to reproduce, right? And again, I think that's something that both sides should be able to come together on. Males have 50% of the sperm they had in the 70s. And at the current trajectory, we'll have 0% sperm in Western cultures for men. So I want to say, can we come together, both sides, on the right for my son, who's 5 years old, to have enough sperm to reproduce, like the right reproductive rights for my son, or reproductive health for my daughters, like that they're healthy enough to have a family and to reproduce. And that is being robbed from humanity, from up above, from whether you think it's the chemtrails, the foods, the endocrine interrupters, the plastic, the paraquat and Roundup and atrazine, the soup in which we are living in is robbing us of our reproductive health and our reproductive rights. And people will go in the streets by the millions and scream for the right to eliminate the baby that's in their womb. But I see mostly silence in the streets when it comes to the rights for my children to be able to reproduce.
Yeah. It doesn't get as much press. It's not as popular. There's so much propaganda pushed towards, that, what are you trying to take away from me? My right to terminate life. I mean, it's pretty wild when you think about it.
And so I want to change the conversation on reproductive rights. Like, I am a passionate advocate of reproductive health and reproductive rights. I am passionate that my children are healthy enough to reproduce, and they are healthy and they have the right to reproduce. We have not been robbed from them, from the food, from the chemicals, from all that. That's what I want, is reproductive rights and reproductive health for my children. And I want the meaning of that to be shifted in our culture.
Well, it's really the ultimate pro-life, pro-human stance to prioritize that to the capacity that you are, right?
Yes. And I am pro-life and I am pro-human. And I unashamedly am pro-human and pro-life and believe that we belong here. We are not a pestilence on the planet. We did not accidentally come from monkeys and accidentally here. Like, we are here with a profound relationship with the Creator, and we belong, and we have long forgotten our place.
Yeah.
And we must step into the keystone species and reconnect and remember. And in reconnecting and remembering, everything else will probably fall away. But at this moment, and I try not to get into the scary or the thing, we are driving 90 miles an hour on a straight line towards a complete control grid, complete digital money system. And I did believe that Trump would slow that down to some degree, and I was wrong. He is as fast as Kamala would have been at implementing that system. And I'm sure that the only way to avert it is that we must reconnect with an agrarian way of life rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not allow ourselves to be corralled out of nature.
Yeah. No, totally. I mean, reverence for the sanctity and sacredness of actually what it means to be human is something that we need a great remembering of. There's no doubt about that. Let's unpack that a bit further in terms of, reproductive health. Like, what are the steps? Where do we need to go? What needs to shift if Mollie had her way, so we can start aligning more so with a more fruitful future?
So if Mollie was like king for a day, um, we need to eat foods in the way that they were intended to be eaten. So anything you look on a package, on the back of a package, and if there's things you can't remember what it looked like growing in your grandmother's garden or on a vine, on a walk, or, when you were picking strawberries as a child or whatever, like, don't eat it. And then if it is something that it's just an isolate, this isolate of this and an isolate of that, an isolate of that, like, I believe that God's design is perfection. And even if you want to say science is divine, if you don't want to believe in the divine, it evolved out of nothing, if that's what you believe, like just a black hole and it came. So again, it's perfection. It's just, it's beautiful, and it evolved. And we have tried to like manipulate it to no end. So I would love for people to eat foods that the way that they were. I write for Epoch Times, and I wrote an article that said SNAP is a grant from the government, and it's a nutrition grant. And so therefore the outcome should be nutrition. Yep. And so in a farming grant, I have to produce a specific measurable result as an outcome. Like if I get a grant for a greenhouse, I must have a greenhouse appear. If it's a greenhouse grant, the SNAP is a nutrition grant, and it is not producing nutrition. So firstly, if it was up to me, because people say like, oh, well, there's people and they don't have enough money and inequity and privilege of food and I would automatically make like 10 ingredients, 9 ingredients, some 5 ingredients, I don't know, a very radically small number of ingredients would be the limit for things that you can buy with SNAP. And I would give double dollars for your SNAP if you're buying it from a local farm or a farmer's market. So if you're buying eggs from your local farm and they cost a little bit more than they do at the store, you're going to be getting double dollars. You're going to get, so you can get those more healthy eggs. So we can take away this, and no sugar. I mean, already 20 states, mostly conservative states, it's crazy, have taken sugar, candy and soda and cookies out of the SNAP program. But I don't think that that's enough. But so that would go, and I would just totally have the SNAP money go try to be directed into agrarian communities around the inner cities and around the outer cities. And so that money was used in that way, and to promote more that. And then water filtration. Water is so important. It's alive. It has memory. And so getting healthier water into our cities, getting water structuring devices. I mean, I'm positive that they can figure out. It's not that there's like lots of ways to structure water with electricity, with this, so much technology, just a whirlpool. I mean, so structuring water, cleaning water. So clean water, foods as they were, and then less chemicals. And I understand it's hard to farm without chemicals. It's also like hard to write articles without AI, but for many, many years, everybody did it. And now like you go and you're submitting an article and you have to like sign, I did not use AI to write this article, because everybody knows that journalists are literally becoming obsolete but we don't want humans to be obsolete. So let's do things the harder way. Like we've forgotten to prioritize resilience and not prioritize convenience. We pray to the God of comfort every single day. And we've forgotten that to be human is to be uncomfortable, to sweat, to work hard, to strive to live, to strive for our offspring, to strive to make offspring, to strive to have structure and shelter. And we are so comfortable in shelter, and our basic needs are taken care of to the point that we find other ways to struggle, because we need struggle to keep us strong. Everything is stronger under pressure. Your muscles are better under pressure, your legs, your bones, everything's better under pressure. And we've taken the pressure away.
Yeah, you really exemplify that resilience, Mollie, even just in the few years that I've known you, but then reading about your like story and the first few chapters of your book, you go into that. Like, I had no idea that like where you came from and you got into the hip hop business and you were trying to hustle an ex-boyfriend's like rap album. But then the guy was like, no, like, you're awesome, be my assistant. And then you got a recording studio and then you had to sell that. And then you got into the weed business. Like, I mean, if you want to talk a little bit about it for our audience, I think, first of all, go buy your book when it comes out and read it. But like, I just love to like get into that a little about your story, what made you so resilient and how it's shaped you. I know we touched a little bit on this in our first interview, but I just feel like
there's a lot more. There's a lot more.
It's funny. I was just talking to my dad right before this interview, and my dad was calling because we have this food is medicine conference coming up. And I don't know when this is coming out. It might have already passed by the time this comes out, but in the last weekend of September. And the ticket sales are like, I need to sell some more tickets to break even right now. And I'm kind of like hustling to do that. My dad's like, you should just cancel and refund everybody's money. I'm like, Dad, that is like the life that everybody's living. Like, if it's not safe, I'm not going to do it. And that is going to have us directly into the control grid, comfortable in an apartment with 3D printed steak. And I'm not interested in that at all. So let me struggle. But if people don't know about the ranch, they don't come to the ranch. And I don't know how to have people be inspired about seeing Misha Tate and Will Harris talk at the same conference in the same day. But I'm sure it was on nobody's bingo card to see Misha Tate, the UFC welterweight champion, and Will Harris, the ultimate Southern gentleman, talking about regenerative agriculture at the same conference and food is medicine. Like, I love that mashup and I want to bring that to the world. And if that means it's not going to break even or whatever, then that's going to be not fun for me. But come on, like, we got to be willing to take risks. And this world where everybody is dominated by safeness. And I guess I've never been afraid to fail. And sure, it's embarrassing. Sure, you look bad when you do something and it doesn't work, but what would be a life where you never failed? What would you learn? What would you know? I can look back at every failure and every bad situation and see how it was working in my favor later. I can never see it in the moment. It right now feels hard. I look up at the sky often and say, God, what you led me here to the middle of Texas, in Texas Hill Country, can you lead the customers to me? Because I'm confused right now, but I trust the process and I trust that I'm being forged for something. And I've always been being forged for something. So yeah, I started out in college, had a neighbor that was a producer at Sony Epic. And I tried to get my boyfriend a rap deal. It didn't work out, but because I was so gung-ho, the guy hired me to be his assistant. And then I ended up getting my own recording studio and, just thing after thing after thing. And then the recording studio was crushing it. We did all the big names of the time and Mary J. Blige and Nas and I don't know, B2K was a big group. And we did a bunch of gospel stuff and a bunch of different hip hop stuff. And it was a crazy time in my life and it was amazing. And then out came Pro Tools and Napster at the same time and just kind of crashed. Budgets from record labels went way down because people are downloading music. And then budgets didn't need to be big because everybody had a Pro Tools in their closet. And I had a huge SSL board that cost more than a house. And so I lost the studio at some point there. And that was my first time of like losing success, wealth. I had to sell my house. I had to sell everything. And I remember one year it was Thanksgiving and my house was filled with all these hip hop artists and like the game was battling on the front porch with all these guys. And it was like crazy Thanksgiving. And that's like what my life looked like, right? And there's just like a circle of all these who's of the hip hop industry. And I cooked this big Thanksgiving meal. And the next year I'm living in a 2-bedroom apartment, like house, but at the size of an apartment. And I don't have my house anymore and I don't have this. And I would say I only have really 2 friends from the music industry that stayed my friends once I was no longer useful.
Mhm.
And that's crazy. Like you have 5 years in an industry, 6 years in an industry, everybody you interact with every single day. And I would say Focus, who's a big producer for Dr. Dre, is still my friend. I was texting him yesterday. And Jesse Powell, who passed away, was my friend through years after. And that would be the only two people from the arguably hundreds of people that I knew from that time in my life.
The
That was
the
like
ra-
typical LA.
the rapper The Game was hanging out on your front porch.
Yeah.
That's
Thanksgiving, battling a guy named Shogun who passed away from fentanyl during in a homeless encampment during COVID. Shogun was one of those people. He was one of the most talented people I ever met in my life, like raw talent, but so much pain, so much trauma, and so much inability to manage oneself. I watched him get deal after deal and then just show up so drunk or so angry or so whatever and lose it. And I remember I have a friend, he's still actually, I misspoke. There's also another guy named Narada. That's not his hip hop name. He has a different name but anyways, we stayed friends as well. But he had got him a deal and they went out and he called him a couple times to tell him that the deal is here. You can sign it. We're going out to celebrate. We're going to be at this place. He didn't answer the phone. And they'd been meeting with these executives 3 or 4 times through the week. And Shogun doesn't get the message. They go out. They're like bottle service at the club. They're cheersing to Shogun. It's going to be amazing, blah, 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 blah. And Narada has agreed to basically manage Shogun's emotional well-being. Like, I'm going to buffer this. I'm going to take care of this. You guys can trust that I've been in a group with him for years. I can manage this. I'm an upstanding, like I can manage and buffer it. So they're celebrating him. They keep calling him. He's not answering his phone. It's going right to voicemail. This executive pulls up to his house that night and Shogun's there and he robs him.
Oh my goodness.
And he's like, you can't see my talent. You don't appreciate me. Da, 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 I'm going to take your watch. And he robs him. So the guy calls Narada and says, yo, you got to call him and get my watch back and my wallet back. And like, no, he can't have a deal. And so Shogun, there was nobody more talented than him. Everybody in the hip hop industry back then wanted to capture that. And I'm saying he battled the game on my front porch and Shogun would say he won. I'm not going to say who won or whatever, but it was that much talent just pouring out of him, but he couldn't manage his own emotional experience. And I think that Shogun is an extreme example of this, but the lesson for all of us is it's not just about talent. Some people look at me and think like, you're so lucky, your life, like I want to live on a farm and have my own cow and milk it and my kids will eat sourdough bread and blah, blah, blah. Like, you think that happened by accident? You think that happened because I just said I wanted that or because I was good at cooking sourdough bread? Talent is only 10% of what you need in life. And the willingness to push through when things don't go your way and to emotionally be able to navigate hard times is 90% of success. And so I don't know anybody with more talent to be able to rap and freestyle than Shogun had, but he didn't have that 90% that was so important. And there's tons of people that don't have as much talent as he had in his pinky finger that made millions of dollars because they had that 90% and they had a little bit of talent. And so I don't know why we got onto this subject of Shogun, but I do think it's an important thing for us to all recognize that it's not just about your skills. And sometimes we can feel victimized to life. Like, I'm so talented at this and nobody's recognizing that. Or you see a podcast, how did those guys get, how many years were they hustling episodes and getting like 50 downloads or whatever till it blew up? Like, it's not just, you just heard of them, so you think they just blew up. It's not how that works. Nobody just blows up out of nowhere. Everybody has so much dedication. Everybody, and there's nobody that's successful that hasn't made it and lost it and made it and lost it again. That is part of being the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that I embody that spirit. And I hate failing. I hate losing money. I hate that. And we can't let that dominate our life. We can't be like, I'm just going to be safe. We're going to just be safe. Because that's not going to have a life where you on your deathbed feel like you gave it your all.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had an old acting teacher who had a quote, kind of works with the farm reference too. He said, talent is as common as horse shit in a stable, but the cultivation of it is extremely rare. And part of that cultivation is all the stuff that you're talking about too. It's like cultivating things on an emotional level, even just on a business level, and how to navigate your own emotions. It's not just like you've been given this spark of genius and talent, but what the fuck do you do with it?
Yeah.
You know?
Tenacity, recognizing where you self-sabotage yourself out of success and out of what you really want, which sounds like something that Shogun was definitely kind of struggling with. But also like embracing the journey, embracing that you have this inner life, this inner genius that needs to go through certain challenges to be forged so you can give that gift on the level that you need to give it at. And recognizing that that's where the fucking beauty is, you know, and not, oh, I'm going to meet one obstacle, I'm going to reach some resistance, and I'm going to retreat back into my cave and not try again. Like, how are you going to grow like that?
And often I hear people talking about, well, how is this going to work? And how is this going to work? And they want it all like out, laid out, and they want it to know. And my willingness to not know is a superpower. And some people around me get frustrated or angry. And I just had to have a little workshop with my sister-in-law because she said that she had to come to the realization that when I was saying, I don't know, it was because I don't know, not because I was diminishing her question and she very much likes to have everything like organized and set out into the future. And I would, I've got so much going on. I'm often just big picture, managing for big picture, and then write what's in front of me, what's in front of me. So when she's talking about like, in 4 months, I'm thinking about blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that yet. She had, and I had to workshop because she thought I was diminishing her question. And I had to come to like, no, I'm really just in the I don't know, and I'm okay in the I don't know. And so I apologize that you felt not validated in my response, but in full disclosure, it's like, I probably hadn't even thought of it yet because my mind doesn't work that way. And that's why it's awesome to have you in the community, because you're like out there in the future, like between big picture and where I'm just managing for whatever emergencies are day to day. And so that's why we both bring different things to the table. And I think that is, we need the big picture people. We need the inspiration people. We need the not being afraid people, but we also need the detail people that are going to like manage the minutia of, oh, we need to do this and the insurance and and what was the VIN number for the bot? Like I have to do that stuff too, because we're downsized to the place where I don't have someone to help with that. But that's my least favorite part of life. Like that's why I feel like I'm drowning when I'm like getting insurance for the restaurant, for the auto and the farm. I hate all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also I have to develop those skills and be a fully rounded person.
Yeah. Yeah. So much of success is being willing to tolerate uncertainty for as long as you can.
Yes. It's maybe the most important part of success.
Yeah. And okay.
I've learned recently that not everybody is a builder. Not everybody is an entrepreneur.
No.
In trying to like make people a partner and say, hey, we'll pay less, but you could have equity and it doesn't work. What happens is they just see the less pay right now.
Yeah.
Don't feel secure in the equity. Don't realize that the person who's putting up all the money is like super unsure in the future and is getting no money coming in, right, for them. But they can't, like, it's very hard for the non-entrepreneurial mind. And I do think that people are either hourly earners or they are visionaries and builders. And it's hard to be both. I've never been good at the hourly earning kind of job. I just never have. And does it mean I can't do it? I do. I work, like I said, I write for Epoch Times. It's kind of I guess it's still freelance. I don't know. I've never been excellent. I've been a personal assistant. I've worked delivering pizzas. I worked in restaurants. I've done lots of those jobs, but I'm always kind of, even if I'm doing a job like that, I'm trying to envision the bigger picture. Like I was always like coming with ideas of how to make things better. And, probably for sure the guy that I'm delivering pizzas for doesn't care about my ideas about how to make it more efficient or whatever. But that's I am always looking for the bigger picture.
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I just want to kind of wrap this kind of section. It's like, when we talk about those that like just want to take the path of like least resistance and just have things as easy and as safe as possible, like it kind of brings to mind for me, Matthew 7:13, enter through the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way which leads to destruction, and many go by it. But small is the gate and narrow is the road that leads to life, and there's few who find it. It's like finding that narrow gate that the masses simply aren't willing to find because they're not willing to tolerate all the things that we're discussing. Like that's where the gift is. That's where the fruit is. That's where the godliness is. And I genuinely believe, like you, that's what we're made for.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Mollie, where do you think like this aspect of who you are like came from? Obviously it's part of your essence, but like were you raised in this way? What made you so resilient? I mean, obviously going through thing after thing, cultivates that. But like, was this something that your parents had?
Like the mindset.
Like this kind of
Yeah,
mindset. That is rare.
My parents were entrepreneurs and they lost. I can remember my dad like screaming on the phone to a landlord in New York City for our store on Columbus Avenue, like, yeah, you want to put a lien on my house? Like, go ahead. But that I don't have the money to pay you. You can't squeeze water out of a rock. I remember hiding under his desk and listening to him yell and trying to like hear and hearing the fear in his voice and the man trying to, protect his family and the failing that was happening. And then, I remember him being done with that call and then go swimming in the pond and then look through all the couch cushions to see if we could find enough money to go to the movies that night. And, I feel like my dad was and my mother were resilient in many different ways. And they had entrepreneurial spirit. And they, even as that business was collapsing, and then they ended up, finding a way to getting a partner and starting producing clothes in Lithuania rather than the United States, and creating this like secondary line that was cheaper and could go into like Bloomingdale's and like those got not so like boutique-y and high end. And then it ended up going in a lot of boutiques anyways, but like it was just a lower price point than my mom's clothes. And I remember my dad saying, the store on Columbus Avenue didn't go how they wanted it to go, and he didn't blame other people. He said, we didn't realize, your mother makes 6 lines a year, and that was plenty for, what we were doing. But when you have a store, they want something fresh every single week, and we were not providing that. And, we just didn't know, and we jumped into, and, my dad felt very led by God. The name of my mother's company was Engelhart. And when he went to look at that location on Columbus Avenue, someone had scraped Angel into the sidewalk. And sure, tons of Latino young men, her name is Angel. And so you could say like, yeah, well, what? So somebody concrete poured that sidewalk and wrote his name. No big deal. But my dad felt like it was a sign. And he always believed that even though that store didn't work out, it led to something else. And so I watched them. We went to New York City every weekend and trying to get that store off the ground, and my dad doing the construction. And, I also like remember my parents just letting us like free on the Upper West Side. And I think about it now, like I would never let my kids just run around like the Upper West Side and go to the movies and come back and go to the bodega and come back and go get pizza and come back. Like I would never, to be honest, like in this current world and what I know and understand about how certain people view children, I would never. And I always thank the Lord that nothing bad ever happened to me and my brother in all the ways that we were kind of out in the world. But yeah, I think that I learned and watched my father go through these struggles and lose and then come back bigger and better. And then,
Yeah.
and then they had to sell the business because when they got divorced, neither one of them could, my mother couldn't afford to buy out the partner. The partner didn't want to do business with my mother without my father. My father and mother were getting divorced. And I watched that like kind of tear apart their income and my mother's identity. And, it was my mother cheated. So I don't feel like she was a victim in it. And then I watched, my mother go to Hawaii and build this community. And, she's not wealthy as she was for sure, but she's definitely living the life that she wants to live. Nobody's allowed to have cell phones there. She's like, fully was down the rabbit hole before any of us were and living fully off grid and created something beautiful and her church and, the ceremony she does and all of that. It's awesome. And my father created Cafe Gratitude. At what age was my dad when he started Cafe Gratitude? The age I am now. So when I think to myself, oh, I'm starting over at 47. It's so messed up. And no, that victim consciousness is not going to get me anywhere. And the truth is, I watched my father rebuild again for the third time at this age. And arguably Cafe Gratitude was the most financially successful thing he ever did. And my dad is, I want to say 69 years old right now, maybe 70, 69, I think. He just left California to escape the bureaucratic communism. How would you put bureaucracy and communism into one word? Whatever that is what California.
Yeah, borough communism. I don't know.
Bureaucracy, communism, totalitarian state.
Communocracy.
He just left that and moved to Idaho. And his wife is, I think, 75 and or 76 and he's, 69. I mean, that's the stock I come from.
Yeah.
Yeah. They still own Gratitude, Cafe Gratitude. That's all.
Yeah. They're still partners here.
Yeah.
So that my dad's willingness to start over and start over and start over. And sometimes he feels responsible. That was part of our conversation this morning is that I don't have financial security, that I'm in this predicament that I'm in right now. Like that he didn't train me on saving or that I was always building and he's always building. And that the training that he trained me on is how to be extraordinary at building, but not saving. And I said, yeah, that's true. But what are you gonna do? You're still building. You're still spending as much money as you have coming in. He's building he built a sauna. He built he's built a dairy. I mean, my dad loves building and that is who we are. We're builders and we're creators. And the greatest joy I experience in my life is having an idea and bringing it into shape, form, and experience in the real world. I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when the money flows easy and it's easy to do that. I don't so much love when I'm like, I have an idea and I'm like grinding to get it. I don't. But does that really matter? No, it's just a different version. Like right now is a different version. And every time, I failed in the music industry or the music industry failed and I fell with it. The pot industry fell and I fell with it. The restaurant industry fell and I fell with it in Los Angeles specifically. And now I'm building something new, but it's like the ocean. You know what I mean? Like you're going to crash and then build back up again. That's okay.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I see it. And look, if there's any listeners out there, I am this close to finishing what we're doing here. I have a brewery. I have $500,000 equipment in the wall behind me right here. And I would love to get our first Roundup free beer off the ground and into the market shelves. And I need $265,000 more to do that. And if you feel inspired by what we're doing here, regenerative agriculture, food and housing and this retreat center. It's not just in the brewery. You'd get your investment would be in all of that. I invite you to come in and be my partner. And I'm open to that. And I'm joyously awaiting the abundance to flow this direction.
I love it. I love it, Molly. You're incredible. And, I mean, to me, it'd be a no-brainer if someone had the money to have you as a partner with the vision and the tenacity that you have for sure. And your story is so resonant to me as well. And I think my dad was an entrepreneur in his own way. He was, of course, fled out of Palestine in 1969 or whatever it was, and then went on to become the owner and the founder of the largest ready-mix concrete manufacturer in the Southern Hemisphere. And then he retired at 40, and then he was bored, and he went back into business wanting to make lightweight bricks and blocks using, concrete. And I watched him lose it all. He took the risk and he had everything and he lost everything. And I was with him by his side going to courts through receivership in 2008 with the global financial crisis, et cetera, et cetera. But then just the love of the game, just loves building, loves creating. Like as soon as he could, he was back in it, doing what he does. And the money never really mattered. It's just his joy and his excitement to build and to create and to have a vision and watch it form into reality. Like that set the blueprint for myself as well, I think in many ways as I did for you. And it's just interesting, these kind of life paths that we find ourselves on and for what reason and why. But yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way for sure.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think about stuff. I think I always think I want to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And I think I was in hard industries always, but farming and restaurants are kind of the hardest to make money with the smallest margins. And so I'm always thinking how can I make money online? How can I do this? And I'm sure I would like to incorporate that into my life, but I don't think that I will get the same joy as I do from building.
It's more tangible.
It's more tangible. Were you at the last confluence?
Yeah.
And do you see the progression from where I love that. I love when people were like, oh my God, it's a totally different ranch than it was a year ago.
I've been to all three. And so
the progression.
To see what it's gone from year to year to year, especially the last one was incredible.
And so I love that. And I love building. And I'm, working on launching my podcast and working on launching. I'd like to launch a membership, a fitness membership to the ranch where people have unlimited access to the pod, to some exercise equipment, to the cold plunge, the jacuzzi, maybe a couple nights a week. A couple nights a month to stay here, a free bag of veggies a month, and try to get what is that called when you have when you have a gym membership, a membership. I would like to create more creative ways to bring in revenue than just a burger sold, money in.
Yeah,
I do want to come up with other ways, but I don't think I'd be happy to be I'm going to import masks from China and make $1 billion. I just don't think it doesn't resonate with me.
No, that's Joel's in my side. That's our side hustle for the next pandemic.
Really?
No.
I do know somebody who made a lot of money, and I literally sometimes kick myself oh, he did say I could at the beginning he offered me to put in $25,000 and to get this shipment of masks, and I did it, and he did make tons of money. And sometimes I kick myself about that, but it's ugh.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't feel good about myself if I was making money off of bringing in masks for some quote unquote pandemic.
No, so that's the thing is I don't even believe in masks. I believe that they're harmful. I don't even think that they're neutral. I think they're harmful to our health. And so, and my husband sometimes gets frustrated because he has to work so hard for all of my ideas. And thank God that I have such an amazing husband. But sometimes do we have to do everything you think God wants us to do? And I'm yes.
Speaking of that, you have a chapter in your book called Masculinity, Holding the Line Against Chaos.
Yes.
And I'd love for you to dive into that even more, that. And even combining with that, I know you also say Mother Nature is, what's the quote, is conservative or something
Mother
like that?
Nature is conservative.
Mother is conservative. So yeah, I'd love for you to unpack all that.
So I believe I grew up in a very liberal. I mean, my parents voted Republican because they were business owners, but I grew up in a liberal household. My mother had multiple abortions when I was growing up. We were very open-minded about sexuality. My nanny was a lesbian. I mean, there wasn't really transgender people back then that I remember, at least in our community, there wasn't much of that. But just like, drugs, I was encouraged or allowed. I don't know about encouraged, but I was fully allowed to do drugs. Our family did mushrooms together every Easter. It was called Easter picnic or family picnic. So yeah, like I was in a household and in a not when I was a baby, but as a teenager, we did mushrooms on Easter. That was a thing. So I had a very liberal upbringing, like the most liberal that you could imagine. And I do think that there was a story that men were not that useful. I don't know if it was out loud in my family exactly, but I went to the alternative community school. That was a super liberal school. And I just think there was a little bit of men are not that useful. And I think if you were to go back there, and if there was a video camera always on me, there would be me saying things like, we don't really need men. You could have a few for reproduction, but women can do anything men can do better. We're smarter. I had that liberal feminist dogma in the back of my head. And I even would go into meetings over the years and it would be all men. It would be like, I'm being sued by someone or whatever. And I'm going in and it's all lawyers and they're all men. And I would kind of just go in the back of my head, like a little song, like I can do anything he can do better. Like I'm not gonna be intimidated by all these men. And that's a crazy way to look at masculinity. Everything that we have in this world is built by men. And you're going to say, well, no, there's some women. Okay, it's electricians are 94% men. Plumbers are 96% men. Road builders are 92% men. Okay, there is going to be that small percentage. But this idea that we don't need men is crazy. And so once I had a baby and then you want protection in a way that you maybe didn't think you needed before, or I didn't think I needed before, it started to break, some of my feminist constructs. My husband is super machismo. He's Mexican from Oaxaca, from an indigenous village. I mean, literally just his already always training, just be asking questions sometimes triggers. I don't know that his mother ever questioned his father. I don't know that she ever questioned an idea that he had. I think it was just whatever the dad said went. And so sometimes I'm like, oh, I didn't even know. I'm not even aware. I stepped in a mine that I wasn't even oh, okay, sorry, wound. I stepped on a wound I wasn't aware of. But so I had to do all this retraining of myself in marrying my husband. I had to learn that how much it meant for me to bring coffee in bed or cook him a meal or make him a plate when there was a buffet and not expect him. And my mother never made my dad's plates, never, that's not the way the marriage was. My dad got up and made our meals for lunch in the morning. And I don't know, it wasn't the way that it was in his house. And so I had to retrain. And I was kind of we cook all day at work. What is the big deal if we just order takeout? What is the big deal that you need me to make you dinner? And I had to retrain so much of my feminist ideas. And then I talk about in the book, in farming, how much of what needs to be done I cannot do. And he needs to do it. And then I talk about catastrophes happening and about a flood that happened in California in 2023, January of 2023. In no way, I was pregnant and I have children and the propane tank is floating down the street and ripping out of the thing, and cows are being cut by metal fences that are flying through the air. It is so dangerous. Anybody could die at any time. And that I'm kind of controlling. I've been the dominant one in my business and I have that part of my personality. I'm very pregnant because it's January something and I had the baby in March. So I'm very pregnant and I'm walking with a stick and we're going through 18 inches of water and stuff is flying. And all of a sudden I just like said, like, what am I doing? Like, and I retreated inside and I made some beef stew and cornbread and tried out people's boots. And so they had changes of boots and went and found t-shirts and sweatpants and pajamas because nobody could leave. And so all these people that came to help were stranded here. And okay, let me get clothes for everybody. Let's get bedding and set up for people. And I just totally shifted because I wanted to be outside. I wanted to control. I felt like by me being there, I could stop that men are going to get hurt because they're not thinking like a woman would think. But literally like, yeah, no, we don't need a women's way of thinking when there's 18 inches of rushing water. Like I need to go inside and be with the children and cause comfort and food and bedding and clothing and all of that. And we need to let the men be out there. And even if I think what they're doing is dangerous or putting their lives at risk, they are built for that. And it's actually not helping for me to be like, that's dangerous. Like, I don't want you to do that. That's making me uncomfortable. Like, I'm scared. Like, no. I think you should do it this other way. Like not helping. It isn't helping. And I had a new assistant that day and my husband snapped at me and she was like, toxic masculinity much. And I remember thinking like, does she want to be here with just me pregnant and the kids? Like Trevor's there, Ryland's there, my husband's there, a bunch of farm workers are there. And everybody is working as hard as they can to save all the animals, to save the thing. Like tractors, RVs are getting washed into the river, all this stuff. And I'm thinking, what does she mean? Yes, he snapped at me. I was worried about my mulberry tree, which probably wasn't that important in that moment, you know? and so he reversed his tractor between the mulberry tree and the propane tank so that the propane tank couldn't float away. So we still had hot water. And I was like, babe, you're crushing my mulberry tree. And he's like, cállate, cabrona, which is like basically shut up, strong woman. And she was so taken back. And I remember thinking, well, thank God for men. I'm going to go inside and make beef stew.
It's also in the heat of the moment. It's like you're singularly focused on taking care of a potential threat. Like the outside voices are like a nuisance. You know, just no, I'm handling something right now. I don't need opinions by someone who's not also helping keep this propane tank from floating away.
And that day, I just was so present to men and the beauty of my neighbor, Levi, when Elias was still at work, and Elias thought I was overreacting when I called to say like, hey, I think you need to come home. Because I got in the bath. I was very pregnant. I wasn't going to the restaurant. I got in the bath because I was having some pain. And then I remember there was like a little water trickling in the culvert between my house and the hop yard. I don't know if you ever went to my farm in California. Yeah. But so there's like a culvert, like a little trench that goes into a culvert under the road between the hop yard and my house. And there was just water trickling, like it was raining, and that's normal that water would be trickling. And when I got out of the bath, it was coming over the road. The culvert was completely blocked and it was backing up like a pond and breaking out into the hop yard within like very short amount of time. And so I called my husband. I said, you have to come home. Like it's dangerous. And he thought I was kind of overreacting. And then my friend Levi came running over and put his kids in our house because the hill started sliding at his house. And then he saw it. He got my husband's tractor and tried to dig it out to give a little bit more time to. And then he was like, I got to go. My house is in danger. Can my kids stay here? His kids all like had run out of the house, no shoes, like completely feral, and his wife pregnant. And they all went in the house and started watching TV. And I just remember thinking like men want to just protect the family, protect the women and children. And that's so beautiful. But if we don't allow masculinity to bloom in our culture, then it's not going to protect women and children when it's necessary, because literally we've devalued it to such a point that they don't even know what to do when something like that happens. And so I really had an awakening around masculinity and how necessary it is and how we have to honor it. And I mean, everything, even the Me Too movement. I remember thinking during the Me Too movement, and this is before a lot of these other awakenings, and I said it out loud multiple times, and I'm sure that's on a podcast somewhere or whatever, but I said, I don't think women have compassion for what it's like to be attached to a moisture-seeking missile 100% of your life. And like, what would that be like to be dominated by that experience of just wanting like that urge? And I don't know what it's like. It doesn't justify anything that any men have done that was wrong. But I would say that we don't have compassion because we don't relate to our sexuality in that way. I don't even really think about my sexuality until my husband's ready to have sex. Like it doesn't dominate my space. It's only a few days a month where I'm like, ooh, I think, that it would be like I would be the initiator. I would have that thought. And I think that men are saddled with a desire that is by purpose because they are the drivers of reproduction. And so we have to honor that and we have to respect that, and men have to manage that and that. But I do think that we have very little compassion for what that's like. And I say that.
Did you say moisture seeking missile?
Yes.
Yes, you did. It took me like 1 second afterwards. I was like, is this going where I think it's going? No, I hear you though. I hear you. And then you bring on like even the traumatic element, what men deal with. We just had an episode on circumcision, and that's a whole nother conversation on how that trauma impacts a man's relationship, their sexuality, and how they go about the world. But yeah, I mean, men need to take responsibility, of course, for what they do. Having a moisture-seeking missile out of control doesn't give you the freedom to, Yeah, but
that's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm agreeing.
But I'm saying that we have to have compassion. We have to teach our girls to understand. And I was 14 years old, and I don't know if I talk about this in the book, but I was 14 years old and I was walking from school to my job after school, which was my parents' business. That's why I had a job. And I was wearing a black mini skirt. This is the 90s. So like those kind of stretchy pencil skirts, and Doc Martens and a kind of tight shirt. So all form-fitting outfit. And I'm 14 and I was voluptuous at a young age. And I get to the store and I was like, there was this guy and he was looking at me. And the woman, Catherine Keller, who ran the store, she was the manager for my parents, said, honey, you're 14 years old. You're old enough to have a baby. Your body looks like it's old enough to have a baby, and arguably maybe the most attractive that your body will ever be. And so you also have to be responsible for how you present your body in the world. That man needs to be responsible that you're 14 and he was looking at you, but you have to also understand that you're dressed in a way that's asking to be looked at. And he is maybe not necessarily a pervert, and he's just appreciating your beauty. And yes, you're 14, and yes, he's old. And he might have been 30. I don't know. Old. I was 14. He might have been 28. I don't know. You know what I mean? But I remember that always sat with me, that we have to be also responsible for what a beautiful feminine body elicits, and not that justifies anything. I was in the hip hop industry. I got sexually assaulted multiple times, and I don't think that I deserved it or anything like that. But I can have compassion for both of the men and where they were in their lives and how they went from having almost nothing to having almost everything, and this new sense of power and feeling like anything they wanted should be theirs, and being very young and taking something that wasn't theirs to take. I'm 100% forgiving of what they did. And they're both famous, and when the Me Too movement came, I never outed anybody. I can have compassion for a mistake, for something that they did when they were young, that was not right. And when I was 13, I had a friend's brother also it didn't come to fruition. I was able to escape, but that person did landmark many years later, and they never outwardly said it, but we were only 3 years difference. And they just said, if I ever did anything to hurt you, I just want you to know that I'm sorry. And I was young and I was dumb and I was inebriated and that was not right. And I said, well, luckily I escaped and everything was okay. And I still have that person in my life. That person has a family. I know that person. I love that person. I could have written that person off as a blah, 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 whatever. But that's not true. He was 16 and filled with hormones, and it was a party. And, I can have compassion for that. And it doesn't make it right. We need to raise our sons to have restraint. But I also think we have to have compassion. I'm sure this is not a popular conversation. Lots of people are like, what are you saying? You're justifying. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just saying there is compassion available.
Yeah, and I think you're highlighting something that's important that gets left out of so much in our highly polarizing world is nuance. And so there's some nuance. Again, doesn't mean I don't think you're rationalizing or you're justifying. You're also sharing your personal experience, and your ability to have compassion has allowed you to have, a relationship with this person still that you honor and you value. And a lot of people get written off. A lot of young kids do things that aren't ideal, and then they just get thrown away, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm sure people listening to this, some people might be like triggered, and at the same time, so what? Like, this is life. Tough conversations need to be had.
I also think that trauma doesn't need to be trauma. Like, how we hold something in our body is everything. And so the context in which we hold it is going to be how we hold it. And so if I can hold it as these three separate experiences, if I can hold them as a moment of weakness, and I can have compassion and can understand, then I don't have to have it be something that dominates how I feel about myself, how I feel about sexuality. I don't have to mess up my sex life. I don't have to have it be some dark and terrible thing that happened to me. It can just be a thing that happened to me. And I do think that we have the power to frame the story around the traumas we have. And that story is as important as the what happened, because I could frame it totally differently. And I have friends that have had much less, like a grazing of the butt or a grabbing of the thigh, that they experience as like it ruined their relationship with that person. And I mean, I worked in bars and restaurants in the hip hop industry. Like, the amount of times like butts and boobs and thighs got grabbed, like I don't even relate to those as sexual anything. Like, oh yeah, that's working at a bar, that happened. I don't know. I don't have that context for it. And if I did have that context for it, I can't see how it would be beneficial to my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, you bring up something that I speak about often, is even just the word trauma. I think people mistake the definition of trauma as solely the event. And it's not. It's sure, the event is there, but it's the person. It's a very complex psychological and physiological response to the event that occurs. And so, sure, on some level, maybe some things are automatic, but again, there can be some choice in how you respond and how you view a thing. And so people just think, oh, this horrible thing happened, I'm traumatized. But it's more complex than that. And so, yeah, I just want to thank you for sharing all this.
And I do think that we have the power to frame the context, and context is decisive. And the event, you cannot change the event, but you can change the context in which you view the event. And that can change how you hold that memory in your cells and in your body, and how it impacts your health, your wellness, your mental well-being, and your overall. I mean, we're all water. Water has memory. And we know that, like, how we hold that in our body has some connection to how healthy we are. And, that's not the conversation I'm going to have on the Heritage Foundation podcast next. But on this
You mean
podcast,
you're not going to say moisture seeking missile on the Heritage Foundation podcast? I'm not listening. That's it.
I'm done. Yeah.
I'm sorry. You guys can bleep it out. I'm sorry.
I love it. I love it. I think it's great.
That's gonna be the reel that we post on Instagram.
No, do not make that the real.
But it's just gonna be 4 seconds, just you saying the phrase only.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love it.
No context. Just Mollie says moisture seeking. Men are attached to a moisture seeking
missile.
Go listen now. Mollie, I guess we should talk about the inspiration for the book a little bit. Normally we'd lead with this question, but it seems like on the surface, people might think they're getting into a purely regenerative farming, agriculture kind of book, but it feels like it's a lot more rich, complex, and nuanced than that. Would you like to speak into, I guess, the inspiration and what people can expect?
Yeah, it's not anything. It's right now. I saw on Amazon, they had it at eco ag. And I was like, can we change the category? People are going to be very upset if they're thinking they're getting a book about regenerative agriculture, and then I'm talking about reproductive health and masculinity and breastfeeding and I don't know, co-sleeping. The book is really about the reconnecting with God's design and these lies. I think that I can have this conversation on this podcast. There's all these lies that they want us to tell every day. And I think that the more we tell these little lies because it's comfortable to tell them, we get used to it and we can justify it. And we don't even know that they're lies anymore. We might have thought it was a little weird the first time we said it, but then by the 10th time, it's just a fact. Men can have babies. No, they can't. Sorry. But how many times have we heard this lie and we want people to keep saying it? Well, I am in the most loving and gentle way from this person that was, if you would have take Mollie in 2016, I'm about as liberal as you can come. I'm driving a hybrid. I'm living in Los Angeles. I'm all about,
you have a vegan restaurant.
I'm a vegan chef. I'm just totally
it's crazy.
Talking about the weaponization of the media on Black men. And, I'm just way down that tunnel. And I believed it all. It's not like it was fake for me. I believed every bit of that. And when the chink in the armor cracked for the veganism, I talk about in the book that actually the pro-life chink, I guess, was the first chink in the armor to get cracked, but I never told anybody. I was secretly pro-life, never going to tell anybody because that would be crazy to say that in my community. And I married an undocumented man. Basically, you should just be able to look up what is a liberal on Wikipedia, and there's a picture of me with my Lexus hybrid and my undocumented husband and my vegan restaurants, and that was me. And so, but as the chink in the armor of veganism popped and the chink in the armor of pro-life popped, and then I start looking, then COVID happened. So I already had those two chinks got broken before. And then COVID happens. And I remember 3 days before the George Floyd thing happened, I remember seeing people start saying that Black and brown people are getting sick with COVID more than white people. And I said, oh, this is going, because I felt like there was a little momentum of people saying, absolutely not. We're not doing lockdowns. We're not doing this. There was a momentum. And I was seeing people from both sides of the aisle. I was seeing midwives and conservative commentators and all these people kind of coming together and saying, no, we're not. Hippies and all this different sides were saying, we're not going to do this. And people were posting, there was this picture of a kind of stereotypical Black guy from the hood and a stereotypical white guy from the backwoods. And they were holding hands and they're both holding a gun. And it was like saying like what the government's really afraid of, don't be, don't pretend, don't fall for the separation. That meme was going around. And I was feeling like there was a little traction on pushing back against this 2 weeks as now had been spread. I don't know how long it was when this George Floyd, I don't remember exactly, but I felt like, oh, we're making some traction here. Like there's like a lot of, and when they started talking about Black and brown people are being infected more, I said, before even George Floyd, I thought, oh no, this is bad. They're going to make COVID a race thing. And I called some friends and they were like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And then the George Floyd thing happened and everybody was like, you should put right on the sage on the window, like Black owned business. Because my business partner who passed away is Black, but now her mother and her daughter were my business partners, Mimi. And I was like, that feels kind of weird because I'm obviously the face of the company and that's true, but it just seems like a weird thing to just like spray paint on my windows, Black owned business. And all of a sudden like race was just getting turned up. And so I started to like question the idea of race a lot during the Black Lives Matter things. And as I watched people that occurred to be very intelligent to me, people I loved and respected were like painting defund the police on their cars. And I was like, so confused. Like, I don't understand what's going on. And so then that kind of made me question a lot about what is race? How is race used? Because before even the George Floyd thing happened, I was seeing them use race to squash this kind of coalition that was happening to resist the lockdowns. And that was the first kind of wave of a coalition to resist the lockdowns. And I was like, oh, they're about to use race to squelch this. And then they did. And George Floyd happened. And whether it was on purpose or just good timing, in a different time, in a different thing, if it wasn't beneficial to the narrative, that story would have like been a 2-line thing. Like this guy died of fentanyl overdose while in police custody, blah, blah, blah. It wouldn't have been what it was. It was the narrative was used to forward the division and COVID. And so then I started to look for other voices during COVID that were not saying you had to wear a mask and be locked down. The vaccine wasn't even out yet. And so I started listening to Tucker Carlson, and whether I'm sure people think that he's a hangout and whatever people think in the truth community here, but at the time, he was the only person saying like, absolutely not. I mean, every night at 8 p.m. on Fox News, he was saying absolutely not. And so I was like talking to my liberal friends, like, you guys don't think this is interesting? Like, he just talked about the JFK assassination at 8 o'clock on Fox News. He's talking about environmental issues. Like, actually, he's a deadhead. Like, I kept like saying, you guys don't think this is interesting? This is like on Fox News. And everybody was like, he's a racist. You can't. And the chinks just kept going. And then this whole time, I'm spending more time at the farm than I am at the restaurants because of the lockdowns. And so I'm like looking around at nature and I'm like, none of this makes sense. Like, boy cows can't have babies. I'm positive. And you can have all the girl cows you want in the pen. If you don't put a boy in, there's no babies. Like, this is obvious. Like, just everything just started like click, 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 click. And so the story is really how my relationship to nature dismantled that liberal construct that I mean, it was a fortress that I lived inside of and believed 100%. I was an environmentalist. I was, just doing everything right. I was a good liberal person that believed all the good things. Yeah. And then the other thing is I was never vaccinated. So I wasn't even thinking I was ever going to get vaccinated. And I assumed that all my liberal friends that were homeschooling their children to not vaccinate them were also going to not get vaccinated. And I was so shocked. And so then I started to look at like behavior and how willing we are to conform and what makes someone conform or not conform. And how, as a human species, why it would be important to conform for survival, and why in nature, like why a herd and everything like that. I could see why it's important to conform, and I could see why how they were using that desire to do good and to conform, to control. And everything just fell away. And all of a sudden I thought to myself, how could I be a liberal? Like, what? I don't believe in the pharmaceutical industry. I believe in the family, the mother, father, child, holy trinity. I believe in rural values. I believe in protecting rural America and farming and soil and land. I believe in freedom. I believe in entrepreneurial spirit. I believe in less regulations. And I just started to realize like I actually am not a liberal at all. And that is really what the book is about, is how nature broke that armor into a million little pieces.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, I love
it's
it.
incredible. It's like,
Yeah.
it's this the roar of awakening when you remember who you are, you know, and everything else just shatters around that.
I want to just be clear. I'm not saying nature is conservative, like it's going to vote for Trump Vance. I'm saying it wants to preserve the future. It wants to reproduce. It wants to continue to heal itself. It wants to preserve itself. It wants to conserve itself.
Yeah.
And so I just want people to be clear about what I'm saying when I say nature is conservative.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
I don't mean rah, rah, red. I mean to value family, to value the roles of masculinity and femininity, to value reproduction, to value clean food and water and soil health, to value the things
yep.
that were put here for us as the most beautiful gifts.
Yeah. I don't know how familiar you are with the philosophy of Ayn Rand or her books like Atlas Shrugged. I mean, much of what you share sounds like it could come out of Ayn Rand's kind of ethos, especially around entrepreneurship. But basically, the core of her philosophy, objectivism, is that the primary value of nature is to survive. It is a self-sustaining organism. Everything in nature prioritizes its survival. The plants turn towards the sun. The lion doesn't think twice to get its fill. And there's a deeper virtue in survival. There's a virtue in selfishness in that sense, because if we don't prioritize survival and the ongoing growth of the species, of the organism of nature, then nothing else is possible. No other values are possible whatsoever.
I say this all the time. I say, you can take any mammal and they prioritize clean water, food, reproduction, and sometimes shelter. We prioritize shelter and by extension, comfort. And we've abandoned our water, we've abandoned our food, and we've abandoned our reproduction. We're at 1.6 for every woman, we're having 1.6 children. We're not at replacement rate in every single Western nation. There isn't a Western nation that is at replacement rate. So we, the Western world, is falling because we have forgotten what's important. And I went out and had 4 babies, great, but I can't make up for all these women who are prioritizing their career. And I want to invite those women who are prioritizing their career that when you are on your deathbed, you cannot take that greatest success with you. You cannot read your career a book to bed. You cannot cuddle and co-regulate your career. You cannot breastfeed your career. There is something that feels so complete and purposeful that in family. And I just want to invite women to not miss their opportunity to do it. And I almost did. And I just want to invite women to not miss it and to take that moment and recognize that there is something bigger than your career, or you're having fun, or you're traveling, or following the world. Like, all of that is not going to fill the void that motherhood does.
Bam. Mollie, absolute pleasure as always. I love the way you show up with your heart on the sleeve and you bear it all. I know you're going to probably go wash yourself off and change clothes for your next podcast and present in a very different way now. But it's so inspiring to hear you talk and to hear your passion just exude through every cell in your body. And I love it. I'm all about it. I think you're an absolute powerhouse. And I think people should definitely go and check out your book, Debunked by Nature. So thank you so much. Is there anything else that you want to share in closing before we wrap this one up?
Yeah, I just want to share that nothing that's cool in the world works without community support. And so if you want clean food, you want regenerative farms, you want raw milk, you want pastured eggs, you want these things to exist in the world, then it is up to you as an individual to be the best cell in the body and support these things.
Yeah.
And that true capitalism is nature. It's something that supports the community, gets supported by the community, and then it rises and it grows, and things that don't support the community get torn down and they go away. But because we've forgotten that, we're so easily just clicking order on Amazon and order on Instacart and order on Uber Eats. And we've forgotten that we have the power. We, the people, are so many more than those that seek to control us. And so if you just shift to the small farm diet, you shift your buying to the small farm diet, you can make a huge impact. And people always say, besides buying from farms, what can I do? And I'm like, well, what percentage are you currently buying from farms? And it's like, oh, I get a meat box once a month or whatever. And I'm saying, no, like really prioritize buying your food from farms. Can make a huge difference, a massive difference. And I think that we kind of see it as like a secondary thing or a cute thing to do on the weekends to go to the farmer's market. But like, it's imperative. And I'm pleading with the community. And I mean, I don't know where everybody lives. And so if you live near me, for sure, support me. But wherever you are, support the people doing the cool things like what I'm doing here at Sovereignty Ranch, because we cannot exist without the community. And I'm at this moment where I'm here and wondering, like, this seems like I support the community, but the community's not supporting it back. So what do I need to do? What do I need to give, or how can I serve? But I also just want the consumer and the individual to remember that you have the power, and that power, you wield your voting power every day. And so whatever you spend your money on is what you're committed to. I don't care what you write on your Substack. I don't care what you do with your day-to-day life and talking and all of that. How you spend your money is what you are committed to. And so what percentage of your money goes to local farms, to local businesses, to local restaurants, to the local hardware store instead of ordering it? And I want to remind you that if you want cool things in your community, you are the driver of those cool things to stay.
Well said.
Well said, Mollie.
Yeah. We're going to have the link to your book. It's not out yet, is it? Officially?
It's on for pre-order right now. And it'll be out on September 25th. I'm not sure.
This will be out next week. So a month.
Oh, perfect. So also, baby, put the link for the Eat Your Healings Food is Medicine Summit is coming up. And yeah, you can go to debunkedbynature.com and get it right from my publisher, Acres USA, or you can go to Amazon and get it for free shipping, which everybody will. And so you can get it either place, debunkedbynature.com or Amazon, and it's called Debunked by Nature, and it will make a difference for me and my family. And if you live and you want to order a box, a meat box from me, that also supports us. If you want to come on vacation, take your kids on a farm vacation and stay on the farm, milk cows, collect eggs, that supports our family. And of course, joining us for Confluence or Eat Your Food is Medicine or any of the other events that we do here, all of that supports our family and what we are doing. And thank you for being the kind of people that go out and support things in your communities.
Awesome. And you haven't decided yet on the dates for the next Confluence, have you?
Literally, my texts are going off. When I reached over in the podcast, I put my phone, but it will either be, I think, the last weekend of April. Or the first weekend of May. But if you want to text me before you put the notes up for this, I could give you the dates maybe by the time this comes up, because we're literally in it. Me and Alec and Lindsay and Mike are in text about it right now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll hit you up.
Did you
Thank
see?
you so
Because we
much,
just
Molly.
put out a poll in our
Yeah,
Telegram.
I saw it. I was wondering, those 2 dates I think had like the highest ones. So I was wondering if you had chosen between.
We have. I don't think we have, but I did see a text come from Alex, so it might have been about that. But that's why I was
Cool.
putting my phone, so I didn't get caught up on the rate,
Cool.
the vibration.
Molly, appreciate you so much. Can't wait till I'm on the farm again. And yeah, I hope you have a great interview with the Heritage Foundation.
Thank you guys so much for what you do in the world and bringing all of the stories that you bring forth. The ripple effect of what you guys are doing is immeasurable, and you'll never know. Like, you're going to leave this world and never know the ripple effect of who you are. And I just want to thank you for, like, just for example, the circumcision conversation. Like, even if 5 boys don't get circumcised because you had that conversation, like, the ripple effect of their well-being and their life, like, could move me to tears. And that's just one little podcast. And I, of course, did not circumcise my children, but I know so many people that did and live with a deep regret about it. And so I just want to thank you. And of course, the vaccine conversation and how many kids didn't get vaccinated because someone heard something you said, and how many people are shifting the way they eat because of something. And so I just want to thank you guys for, you're never going to know how society changed because of who you are being in the world. But I want to thank you on behalf of all those changes that we'll never know, and just say thank you for pushing through and doing it when you don't want to, when you're in an argument with your wife, you're not really feeling like being inspirational, or you're just tired that day, like, just getting on here and exuding inspiration and truth makes a difference. And I want to personally thank you for that difference that you're making. Thank you so much.
Fully
Molly.
received. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Really appreciate those words.
Yeah. Everyone, I know everyone listening to this has definitely been inspired and moved. Go support Molly. We'll have all the links below, and we'll see you for round 3 someday in the future. Take care.
Yeah, for sure.
That woman literally blows me away, just with the spirit that she embodies, the fucking realness, man. Like, that's a level of realness that is rare. It is incredibly uncommon, the path that she's on and the pursuit that she's on, and super grateful for what she embodies and who she is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with everything you just said. So much was spoken on in this episode about community, and obviously in-person communities are the best, connecting with those around you, supporting those around you. But the second best thing, especially for people that are on this path, that are seeking truth, that want to connect with kindred spirits, that want to continue to grow and evolve and become better versions of themselves. We mentioned it at the start of the episode, Friends of the Truth. That's our membership community. There's nothing like it on the internet. Right now, we have around 80 people in there from all around the world. And the conversations that you're going to have in our private Telegram group on like 30 plus different subjects, the laughter, the fun, the wisdom that's shared, I don't think it could be beat. And that's my personal opinion. So if you want to come hang out with us, hang out with our community, head to www.hereforthetruth.com/FOTT. $17 a month. It's the best value in town.
Couldn't agree more. All right, y'all. Till next time. Peace.